we're going to get started. We're going to learn a lot about flank steak. We're going to kick your barbecue up a notch. It's going to be really, really cool. Let's do our garlic butter first. Okay, so I have a little pot here, and in that pot I have that 4 tablespoons of butter, which is a 1/4 cup. Okay, and all we're going to do is we're just going to prep the stuff that needs to go in it. And I already have my parsley ready to go. You should have that ready to go. So I'm just going to dump that in. So I got 1 clove of garlic that we're going to put in the garlic butter. The parsley is just for some color. Okay, so we have some nice color in that garlic butter, and that's going to get drizzled on the steak at the very end, and I'll show you that. You're going to cut off that little hard bit off the end of the garlic clove. Okay, smack it with a knife, and then the skin will just pop right off. Look at that. Always put through a garlic press so you have fine little bits, or minced really, really well with a knife. And again, my favorite brand, Xylus. I love this thing. Pick up 1 or 2 of these and you'll never buy another one again, all right? Just right in that pot, we're gonna take that garlic clove, pop it in our Xylus garlic press, and just put it right into the pot that you're gonna warm the garlic butter in. And Xylus always comes with a little plunger so you can get every single last bit of the garlic clove. Put that on the stovetop, and just enough heat just to warm it up. And it doesn't take very long. And then we're gonna reserve that just so we can drizzle over the steak. Let's get our spice mix together for the flank steak. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create a Cajun rub. It has a high proportion of, you guessed it, paprika. Starting with that paprika, then the black pepper, the oregano. Now the oregano, I said ground dry oregano, but you can see I got leaves of oregano. That's totally fine too. It works, it's all good. And then salt. And this is where your spice comes in. So this is something that makes it typically Cajun, has that bit of heat to it, right? Is the cayenne pepper. So 1/2 to 1 teaspoon, depending on how hot you like it. If you don't like it hot at all, then all you do is you eliminate this spice right here. And then we're just going to mix that all up. And what we're going to do with the spice rub, so we can dredge it onto the meat efficiently, we're just going to put it on a tray or a plate. You can put it on like a dinner plate or something. It's not very efficient in a bowl to get the steak in there and out. So I do it on a big flat surface like that. It's all good. Let's introduce you to beautiful flank steak here. This one is a little different actually, and I'll show you what I mean. Normally, a flank steak is long, like rectangular. This one's more square. They've cut it a little bit different, and the grains are going this way. And it goes out this way. Normally, it just goes straight from narrow end to narrow end. The grains are going this way. But you can see, look, when you get over here, they're on a bit of an angle. So they go from here, they're going this way, and then they start going out this way, which is a little different for a flank steak, okay? And there's a lot of bad information on YouTube, a lot of bad information on those cooking shows you're watching at home. Everybody says that you have to marinate this thing. Wrong. You do not have to marinate things. You just have to know how to flavor it properly, how to cook it properly, and how to cut it properly. And that's what we're going to do here for you today. I think in my whole lifetime, I've marinated 1 flank steak. You don't have to. So why they tell you to do that is because this is a tough cut of meat. It's cut from the abdomen of the cow. You didn't know cows had abs, did you? They do. They really do. You look at a 6-pack on a heifer one day. It'll surprise you. It really will. Seriously, though, it has a lot of connective tissue. And so that's why there's this misinformation that this needs to be marinated to make it tender. Absolutely incorrect. We're going to not marinate this at all. And it's going to be melt in your mouth tender from the steps I'm going to give you tonight. A lot of times this is confused with a skirt steak. A skirt steak is actually from the diaphragm of the cow. So what's the difference between the diaphragm and an abdomen? Well, abdomen is your stomach. Diaphragm is the section of muscle in every single mammal that separates the breathing apparatus, like the lungs and everything, from the stomach. So it's at the very top, separating the stomach from the all your lungs and everything else for your breathing apparatus. It's called the diaphragm. It helps you to breathe. It's that muscle that helps you contract your lungs, and that's where the skirt steak comes from. Now, they're very similar in shape. They're very similar in texture. They're both very tough. The skirt steak is actually tougher than the flank. They both have very beefy flavor, but the skirt steak is actually beefier flavor than the flank steak. This is very hard to find in Canada for some reasons. In the US, it's very popular. They use it all the time in fajitas, stuff like that. But in Canada, all we have is flank steak. Who knows why? I have no idea. Go to your local butcher and tell them I want skirt steak. Maybe they have it in the bag. Maybe all the butchers just save it for themselves. I have no idea, unless you're going to marinate it. which I don't really recommend. You don't have to. However, if you have a good recipe for a good marinade and you're going to marinate this thing, don't do this other step people always tell you to do, and it drives me nuts. They tell you to make all these scores in it, right? All these crosshatch scores in it. And the reasoning behind that, I get where they're going. They want the marinade to penetrate the inside of the meat. So they figure, hey, if I cut it and make these big slits in it all over the place, the marinade is going to penetrate the meat on the inside. I disagree, because I think that once you cut all that meat and then it hits the hot grill, you're giving an opportunity for that steak to lose all its juices. One of the biggest rules in grilling is to never pierce your meat. Don't take a fork and jab it in there and flip it over and stuff. Get tongs to flip it over, because every single time you pierce and puncture the meat, what do you see coming out of it? You see juice. So if you take that step and you do all these deep cuts in the meat, I understand, yes, the marinade is going to penetrate that, but you're going to lose a lot of juice when it hits that fire. I think it's better to leave it whole. I think it's better to do a spice rub instead of a marinade. And I think it's better to just not overcook it. And then also at the last part, we'll see when it comes off, is how to slice it properly so it is melt in your mouth tender. So all I want you to do at this point is take your flank and literally all in the rub here. We want to dredge this completely. This is called dredging, okay? If you want to rub it, hey, go ahead, rub your meat. It's all good. We just want to get that flavor in there. So you don't have to oil. This will never stick to a grill because it's just coated in a spice completely. You're going to coat both sides because you're going to eat both sides. What I'm cooking on tonight, you guessed it, big green egg. Put it up to about 550 to 600 degrees direct, and we're cooking it over lump charcoal. For a big green egg, all it runs on is charcoal, ignition, and oxygen. That's it. So instead of having two gas knobs to, put your gas higher or lower, you have two air vents, one at the top, one at the bottom. This is how easy it is, folks. We all know heat rises, right? As heat's rising out of here, with this dome closed, there's only one way for it to suck in new oxygen: through the bottom, going through, fueling your fire, affecting your gauge, and exiting out the top. It's a natural convection type atmosphere just through the flow of oxygen, naturally. No fans, no augers, nothing to deal with, nothing electrical, to plug this in. It's just living off the grid, baby. It's all good. Ceramics, so what the ceramics are designed to do, and trust me, they have 46 years of research and development in this product, 46 years of customer service. But these ceramics have been designed to absorb heat energy, store heat energy for you, so you burn less fuel and save money, and you're able to regulate that temperature any way you want. If you want to bake a loaf of bread, this will do it. If you want to smoke a brisket, this will do it. You want to grill a steak, burgers, chicken chops, this will do it. A whole turkey, no problem. Pizzas, no problem. Get up to almost 1,000 degrees and do a Chicago blue steak right in your backyard, better than any restaurant in town. This will do it. And on the major ceramic components, you have a lifetime warranty. You never buy anything again. The fuel, don't get confused. These are not briquettes, okay? Briquettes are man-made squares, anthracite coal, limestone, lighter fluid in some cases. You don't want all those chemicals in your food. You want natural lump charcoal. Just look for the bag. Big Green has their own, but you can buy any bag that says lump charcoal. It's wood that's been heated with very little oxygen. It just naturally goes black. It just naturally carbonizes. According to archaeological digs, us as human beings have been cooking with charcoal for literally thousands of years. There's no more natural known form of fuel than this fuel right here. Anyway, let's get going. Now, I'm about 550 degrees. Because it's controlled by oxygen, you want to introduce the oxygen slowly when you open it up, so you're not having a backdraft, okay? So just whenever you're, 350 and over, and I'm just going to put the steak over the fire and close it up again. With a big green egg, you keep it closed. If you're looking, you're not cooking. But you get an egg and it changes your life. It really does. We're like brothers and sisters when you have an egg. If somebody was to just come up to me and say, Des, how long does it take to cook a steak? You know what my answer is going to be? I have no clue. And they're going to be like, oh, I thought you were a chef. What's going on here? What do you mean you'd have no clue? I don't know how thick that steak is. I don't know how cold it is. Did you just take it from the fridge? Has it been sitting out for a half an hour? I don't know what doneness you want it at. I don't know what temperature you're cooking at. How am I supposed to tell you that magic number of time, how long it's going to take? I have no idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at this. It's just starting to, see that? I'm not flipping it yet. I'm just rotating it. We want, at least I want, medium rare is what I'm looking for. The one thing I forgot to show you on the flank steak, that there's always a thick part and it tapers off to a thinner part. So you're either going to have two scenarios. One,
You're going to cut that thing in half and cook a thick and a thin separately, and pull off the thin before the thick part, or put the thin on later so it's all at the same doneness. Or you're going to cook this thing until the thick part is medium rare, and then you're going to portion out as you're slicing it. You're going to go from medium rare to the thick part. As you're getting to the thinner part, it's going to go medium. It's going to go medium well and well done. And the people in your group that like the well done, they get the first cuts off the end. People like the medium well, people like the medium, and the people like the medium rare at the very end will get the thickest part. So medium rare is about 135, 132 to 135. And then you're going to let it rest for a bit. So I could pull it off at 125, which is rare, let it come up a little bit, and then we can serve the last part to people who want it the rarest. You can do that. Okay, so we've been about another 3. So I'm trying to time it about 3 minutes per quarter turn, guesstimate. Okay, look at that. There we go. All right, so let's put that back on there. Direct timing and a recipe is just a guideline. And what I want you to do is use that as a guideline, but don't treat it as the word of God. Approximately 6 minutes per side, and then I will take my temperature at that point. Well, I'll take the steak's temperature. I don't think I want to take my temperature. It's not going to do us any good. So what I have is an instant read thermometer. Okay, let's have a look at this. I want to make sure I have that visual that I'm happy with. Look at that. Okay. Getting an instant read thermometer like this is really good because you do have a read in about 3 to 4 seconds. So I'm putting in the thickest part of the meat, going down, we're looking at about 105. So we're still pretty rare. I'm happy with the crust on the outside. So what I'm gonna do is just back off the heat a little bit, still over direct flame, and I'm just gonna let that work like an oven. The beauty about a big green egg is that because the ceramics retain heat energy, I could shut the heat off right now completely and just use the warmth of the ceramics to finish cooking that steak, and it'd be totally fine. When you're done cooking with a big green egg, all you do is you shut off the top vent, bottom vent. Can you have a fire without oxygen? You can't. So what happens is the fire goes out, you relight those coals next time you're gonna cook. So very efficient. Here we go. Let's check it again. Now it's been on there a little bit more. 123, 122, 121. I think I might just pull that off. There we go. Look at that. And we'll just let it rest. So literally, I mean, that's a big chunk of meat. Look how much it's shrank up there. It's really pulled together, and you want to let this rest for about 10 minutes. Even if it rests a little longer, even if you go 15 or 20. And why you need to rest every single piece of meat. Obviously, if you're cooking a little tiny chicken breast or a smaller steak, you don't have to let it rest for 15 or 20 minutes. What happens is whenever you're heating something, everything's made up of molecules, okay? And molecules just go like crazy when they heat up. The steak, although it shrank because of the proteins coagulating, the molecules are still going crazy in there. And if you cut into it now, you'll have juices all over the board because you're like, I want to get out of here, I want to get out of here and slice. Here we go! And they go all over the board. Now, some people have said to me, if I leave that sitting out, that's going to be cold. Look, first of all, it's not going to be cold. I'm not putting it in the refrigerator, all right? It's going to be room temperature, okay? Or outdoor temperature, whatever it is, wherever you're cooking this thing, all right? Or wherever you're resting it at. And I tell you what, I'd rather much have a room temperature piece of meat that's juicy than a hot one that's bleeding all over my plate. And the last part, we want to make sure we cut against the grains. So when we pick it up and look at it, remember I said it was a little bit odd that you had this round part. I have it in mine. Normally they're nice and long and it goes the lengthways, but you'll see the grains running like this, almost like a sunburst, okay? Like this is the sun and it's coming out from it like that. So we need to cut it against the grains. For this one here, what I'm gonna do to make it better and easier to do, since I have grains coming out all over the place, I'm going to just cut it in half. First of all, I'm gonna show you the doneness. Look at that. Trying to get the good sun on it, but it's beautiful. And now I can go against the grains this way and go against the grains this way. The grains are going this way, so I'm not going to cut it this way. I'm going to cut it the opposite way. And the reason why I do that, and the best way to explain this, if you had some of that yellow nylon rope, you know, you get at the hardware store, what would happen to that rope if you cut it in little 1-inch segments? The whole thing would fray apart because you're cutting against the grains of those little ropes intertwined together. Same thing with this, you're gonna cut against the grains so that every slice you get is gonna just literally pull apart. You put in your mouth, it's just gonna melt in your mouth. So the next thing we wanna do when we're cutting against the grain We're going to cut it really thin. Most of all, that's the most important part. But we're also going to cut it on a 45-degree angle. And what that does, it elongates the piece, so it makes better plate presentation. We could just take the knife straight up and down and cut it this way. All you're going to have is thin little strips of meat. Nothing wrong with that, but go on a 45-degree angle, and they're going to look like bigger pieces of slices. And it's going to create a better presentation. Let me show you. So 45-degree angle, really, really thin as you possibly can. Get your sharpest knife you have and just go really, really thin. And I'm going to show you one here. Watch, I'm just going to take it. Watch this. And literally just pulls apart. Now, this is the toughest meat you have to get a marinade for. Give me a break. Man, this is so tender and good. And if you have guests or your family, set up a little carving station at your patio table and say, okay, I'm going to carve everybody's portion here. And I want you to do that for them. If you just give them a chunk of flank steak on their plate, they're not going to know how to cut it. And they're going to be cutting it the wrong way and chewing on it like it's leather and saying, oh, this is not very good. I want you to take control, have that carving station. And again, cut against the grain, 45-degree angle, as thin as you possibly can, folks. And you can just cut to order. You want to cut the whole thing ahead of time, you can. Tuck it under some foil to keep warm, whatever you want to do. But look at how nice and long or wide that piece is, right? Because we're cutting it on that 45-degree angle. It looks a lot better for plate presentation. What I'm going to do now is show you how to plate this. And remember, we have that garlic butter standing by as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of that polenta, about 2 big spoonfuls like this, and then we're going to take some of that meat, and I want you to sort of mound it like that, okay? And then we're going to take some of that garlic butter, and if it has solidified a little bit, just pop it over the heat of the barbecue or something, but you're just going to drizzle that, and we are done. Look at the close-up of this. I mean, it's just beautiful. The flavors are incredible. The spiciness contrasting with the rich creaminess of the polenta, it's over the top. And when you do that little douse of garlic butter, it just kicks it up to that next level. And the people will flip over this dish. They really will.